I hope you're having a great night, as best you can. I want to talk a little bit about sport in the COVID world right now. And so you all should be following the NFL situation very closely because in the event that there's another game canceled, as we get closer and past these bye weeks, they're going to have to add on to the season, which I think they should have done anyhow. I think they should have scheduled in the event of and put 2 extra weeks at the end of the regular season, and then playoffs could start earlier or start whenever. But it's conceivable now that you'll be playing the Super Bowl in March, because I don't think this is an isolated incident. You're playing without a bubble. You're transporting a lot of people. And face it, they're human beings. They like to socialize. So I would look for more of this to happen and look for a Super Bowl in March. NBA did a fantastic job. NHL did a fantastic job. MLS did a fantastic job. PGA Tour did a fantastic job. Baseball's done a good job. I think baseball could have integrated some fans, and I think they're going to start doing that now. At least they are in Texas, which I think is a good thing. But there were some missed opportunities. You could have spread 1,000 people out in the stands in all these games over the last month, and I don't think you would have an issue. Just don't have concessions, and just make sure you're doing things like that. People can bring their food in for 1,000 people. Let's see, college football. We'll have to see. I'm not impressed. I don't see a lot of college coaches wearing their masks properly. Still see a lot of yelling at officials. So we'll have to see how this one goes. I mean, I think the college coaches are pretty lax in their approach, and so I haven't been real supportive of it. I said 2 months ago in one of my SBJ columns that there would be no way that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 would be playing games in January, and so you saw they started their own Me Too movement after the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12 started. So everybody wants to play, and that's what they're doing. One of the things about COVID, though, and this whole thing where we are, is I think it brings out a lot of creativity in people. And so I was real impressed with the Michelob Ultra virtual courtside at the NBA games. And then 2 weeks ago, I was very, very impressed with a sponsorship deal that one of my former students did for the Broncos with Comedy Central, where they put 2,000 cutouts of the town of South Park in the stands in Denver. And I thought that was just tremendous. And all the money went to charity. But I think you have to continue to push ahead. You have to be able to be really creative and be really experimental. I mean, this is a time when there's nothing lost. I mean, I had a conversation with one of my clients today, and I'll guarantee you it was 6 years ago that I came up with a concept called Premium Flex, where you would take all of your premium inventory that's not sold on a season basis and sell it like a timeshare. So I based it on, I have a Marriott timeshare and I have a Hilton timeshare. So I have points, and I decide how I want to spend the points, which resort, what time of year, what type of room, and everything has a different amount in it. So I was I smiled a lot today when this one, and another former student of mine started talking about this Premium Flex they're doing one of the NBA teams for next year, and they sold already $1 million of inventory. And basically, it lets you put anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 in an account and spend against it. So you can just buy on a availability basis. You can buy a suite. You can buy courtside seats. You can buy club seats. You can buy theater boxes. You can buy whatever you want to do. So let's say your boss is coming in from out of town and you want to sit at courtside with you and your boss. If there's courtside available, you take your bank and you buy that. If you decide you want to entertain some business associates and you want a suite, you can do that. If you want to go one-on-one and sit in a theater box, you can do that. So a lot of flexibility. We're going to see a lot more of that. The other thing I talk to people about is if you have a health sponsor, like the Cavaliers have the Cleveland Clinic, the Timberwolves have Mayo Clinic. Those are two of the most recognizable health brands in the world. And I said, if you're going to have a plan, have the plan approved by the Mayo Clinic or Cleveland Clinic, because what people need to know is that your venue is going to be safe. That's what they need to know above all. So the number one thing for playing in 2021 is it safe? So if there's a vaccine, that's great, but I still want somebody to certify that the venue's safe. And a safe venue is not going to have cash transactions. It's going to all be cashless. So it's good for PayPal and people like that. I think sooner or later, sports venues will have some kind of a grab and go where you just use your phone, walk into an area, pick up whatever you want, and walk out, and it'll be charged to your credit card on your phone. And so we're going to continue to modify and continue to do things like that. The other thing I think is interesting about next year is that you're going to have baseball, basketball, hockey, MLS, NASCAR, PGA, everybody playing at the same time. So there's going to be real competition for prime time viewing opportunities. So some people are going to get pushed away, and it's going to be dependent on what it is. So baseball has always owned June, July, and most of May. And now they're not going to do that. And they're going to be meaningful, just like this year, meaningful NBA and NHL games in June and probably July next year, if they don't start till the end of January, which is what I've been told is probably a good barometer. And so you're going to have a lot of fighting there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, what goes where, how many fans we're going to have. It's the great unknown. You know, it's almost like we're the explorers of the 14 and 1500s going out into a world that nobody's ever been to before and trying to figure it out. So the other thing that's going on is legalized gambling. And you're going to have legalized gambling now in almost virtually every state. And you're going to have it's going to come about much quicker because of COVID, because state governments, state revenues have fallen, and you're now looking for revenue streams, and this is a good revenue stream. And I've also told people if they want to go to their lobbyist and say, hey, we recommend that you take a percentage of the revenue generated by gambling and use it to COVID-proof schools, because there's no revenue earmarked to COVID-proof schools to make it safer. So there's a lot of good things you can do with it. What's my lookout for students? I don't see any hiring going on really until June of next year. I don't see anything in January and anything really until June, second quarter, maybe even the third quarter. And a lot of the hiring that's going to be done is bringing people back that were furloughed. And it's also going to depend on what your area that you want to get into is. So internships are going to be a really high priced commodity, because a lot of teams have eliminated internships because one of the things they cut. So internships are probably going to be virtual and unpaid. And they're going to be such that, you know, if you have contacts or if you're not afraid, I would be willing to you should be willing to go to an organization and say, hey, I need to do an internship. Here's what I'm willing to do for you. Have you ever thought about this, this, and this? Or what's something on your plate you can never get to? And then volunteer to take on that project or propose a project. I mean, you all are very fluent in digital communications and social media. Take a look at a team's social media, and if you think you can improve it, go in with a plan saying, hey, I can improve this for you. Why don't you give me a shot, and I'll do it as an internship. But the onus is going to be on you. You're going to have to find your own opportunities, and it's going to be very, very competitive. And so you're going to be really creative in the ways that you do things. Some areas are going to be really slow to recover. Like if you want to be in event management, hey, there's got to be events and there's got to be fans. And until there's events and fans, the opportunities are very, very limited. But if you're in digital marketing or content creation, there's plenty of opportunities. And, you know, it's just putting yourself in a situation to enhance your skills. You can go online right now and take Google courses and increase your digital knowledge and your content abilities. And I would suggest you do things like that. I mean, it's just an opportunity for you to do interesting things and broaden yourself and make yourself a much better candidate. What else did I talk about? I don't know. We don't have that much time. Let's open it up to you guys. I want to hear what you want to know about.
Sure.
And I'll answer any question you have.
What do you got? Nick is our avid gambler in the classroom. His classmates have told us. So his question, Dr. Sutton, is, do you think in the United States, as they open venues at limited capacity, that they will open in-venue gambling? Is that correct,
Yes,
Nick?
absolutely. I think
You think
most
so?
most places are going to have a betting window in the lobby, and other ones are going to have lounges. Can be a real emphasis here. And Nick, here's something you should be thinking about. Just like Mothers Against Drunk Driving and Drive Responsible and Designated Drivers, we're going to have to address the gambling thing, because I'm going to be walking into a venue with my grandson one day, and he'll be 7 years old, and he'll say, hey, Grandpa, can we bet on this game? Can we bet on Russell Westbrook getting triple-double? So we've got to start thinking about that. And so give that some thought too, because nobody's thinking about it right now. They're thinking about the revenue, but the revenue is going to be there. There's going to be a lot of online revenue, but there's going to be significant on-site revenue, because it's going to be like going to a horse race, and it's going to be a fun recreational bet.
Yeah. So it's basically you're gonna like go through the turnstile, or now it'll be contactless, and the ticket will be on your phone. And then in addition to stopping to get a beer at the grab and go or some type of snack, you're also going to place a bet for the night. Oh, I'll place a bet on the team to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
First
right
basket of the
basket,
game.
first
Will
goal.
James Harden get a triple-double? Yeah, all those kind of fun bets.
Yeah. Okay. It's a good. I mean, you got to convert the space somehow, right? Especially you're going to limit capacity, and your premium seat sections aren't going to sell. So, questions, George?
Considering how he mentioned how, a lot of venues are looking to get fans in, even if it's around spread out capacity, it's a lot easier said than done to do that more in the South area. But what about, like, let's say the Northeast? Obviously it's starting to get cold here, but how could you have people come into venues without having them to worry about getting sick or something?
In the Northeast, given, obviously the South is allowing fans in limited capacity and things like that. But the Northeast is, and I know you're a big Pirates fan, things like that, and baseball being played up here, or, football, college or NFL, packing in fans into venues, depending on the amount of capacity and the weather being an issue. And especially if there's a second wave, which all signs point to that possibly occurring. What's your thoughts on the timeline on stadium reopening, and depending on where in the country?
Well, I think the Northeast is planning on, if your venue's a 20,000 seat or 18 to 20,000 seat venue, you're probably going to open with 4,000 people. Some will be in suites. Nobody will be courtside. Nobody will be that close. They'll be scattered in pods. The pods will probably be 2s and 4s, maybe a 6 occasionally, but primarily 2s and 4s situated throughout the venue. There'll be restrooms will be open. There'll be sanitizing stations everywhere. There won't be, if you're a club member or whatever, like, one of my favorite places to go is Yankee Stadium, to go to the Legends Club.
Yeah.
Well, that buffet at the Legends Club is going to have to be rethought.
Right.
As great as that is, but it's going to have to be rethought. And you're going to have food that's packaged and delivered, and it's going to be a totally, totally different experience. That, I hope it's not the way of the world for a long period of time, but it's going to be the way of the world in 21. So I think, despite the fact that they're indoor, and despite the fact if we're doing like 20%, we're not having any issues, maybe it grows to 30%, maybe even 50%.
Okay.
I know the NBA doesn't want to start playing in empty arenas. I know that for a fact. They don't want to go back to the bubble, and they don't want to play in empty arenas. They want to be able to open with fans, and that's why they're talking. Maybe they wait till late January.
Yeah, that was my next question. I know you said NHL in January, but from your relationships in the NBA, you're hearing late January.
Yeah, I'm hearing late January. Mm-hmm. We originally had talked about, they were talking about December 1st. And I was at the time, I was pushing Thanksgiving weekend. I thought it would be a good weekend for opening day in the NBA. And then all of a sudden it went to Christmas weekend, and then it went to January, and now it's mid to late January.
So if the Super Bowl is not pushed back, you're talking around the same time as the Super Bowl, but all signs toward with what's occurred lately with the Titans and Steelers and now the Chiefs and
Yeah.
Patriots, and people saying that they shouldn't, despite the negative test, the Patriots Chiefs game shouldn't have happened tonight. I mean, that's a whole nother subject of conversation, but you see the Super Bowl going back to March and the NBA starting when the Super Bowl might have been, if that timeline comes to fruition.
Possibly, maybe a week before the Super Bowl would have started. Maybe it's the last week of January. Super Bowl's usually February 5th
Right.
or 6th. Yeah, but not that far away.
Okay. Megan, what you got?
I was gonna say, do you think it's an unfair advantage that like other teams are allowed to have their fans there and not?
Dr. Sum, what's your thoughts on different stadiums and or leagues having different policies on fans being permitted and not permitted, depending on the league and or where the teams are being games are being played at?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's an advantage. I mean, if New Orleans is at a real disadvantage playing at home right now, because that's absolutely the most home field in the NFL, and their record shows that it's not beneficial to them. So if you're able to have 4,000, unfortunately, the way everything sits right now, it's going to be a local decision. Like the California teams,
None.
aren't having anybody at least next couple of weeks, whereas in Florida we had people this week. Pennsylvania's not having fans until 2021, I've been told. So it varies, and we're all going to have to deal with it. But the numbers aren't that big that would be that big of a difference, I don't think. To me, the real losses, though, that SoFi Stadium in LA looks absolutely amazing. And I would have loved to have seen that. And I hate to see somebody open a $5 billion venue and not be able to have any fans in it. And then the same thing in Vegas for a $2 billion venue.
Mm-hmm. Questions? Derek. Okay. Great question. I was actually going to ask him about college basketball. So what's your thought? You referenced the timeline for the professional leagues. What's your thoughts on the timeline for the college football playoff and the NCAA tournament, which we know has been said that they cannot play not play the NCAA tournament again?
I've gone to March Madness, one round of March Madness for 31 consecutive years. Last year broke my streak. And I would have sworn.
Because of you, though. Not because of you.
I would have sworn that if anything was going to happen last year, that was going to be it, because not playing March Madness crippled college athletics. I mean, they lost a huge revenue check, and they lost the conference tournament champion checks, and they lost a lot of money. And then you go into this year with no fans and no ticket revenue, and then the sponsorship contracts with IMG Learfield kind of dried up. So I agree. I think you have to figure out a way to play March Madness, even if it's in a bubble, because you've got to have the TV money. And, I did hear the idea floated around. I think Mike Krzyzewski was in favor of it, that every D1 school would be in the tournament. And I've always thought that would be fun. It would be like, that'd be a different way to look at it. And if we're going to have less basketball, everybody loves for David to beat Goliath. That's the best thing about March Madness. When Canisius beats somebody, or, College of Charleston knocks off Ohio State or something, it's big. We love that. So it'll happen. I think they said the basketball season was going to start
November 25th.
November 25th, yeah. I think that'll happen. I think that's realistic. Now, whether or not it happens with fans, I don't know, but it'll start. College football playoff will happen. I just think there's going to be a lot of angst this year about who's in, who's not in, and what was fair and what was unfair. And I thought they blew a perfect opportunity to make it at six or eight teams this year. This would have been the perfect thing, and you could have used it as an experiment. You could have blamed it on COVID. And if you didn't like it, then you go back to the old format next year. But really, it should be 6. You get the 2 best teams; they each get a bye, and then you can have all your conference champions represented in your big, and you're Power 5 and you're non-Power 5. You can do the whole thing.
Yep.
But it just doesn't make sense. I mean, but that'll go on as scheduled. They just don't have any windows, and they can't push back. So we'll see. I think it'll happen.
Okay. That was one of my questions. So good job, Derek. What else we got? George, what do you got?
Does he think it's fair that colleges are allowing students to attend in-person classes but not attend outdoor games?
Do you think it's fair that colleges are allowing allowing students to attend classes but not outdoor games, or vice versa? I've heard that's the case too. They're allowed to attend outdoor games, football games mainly, and all their classes are virtual.
Yeah, complicated question. I retired this year. I'm glad I retired because I wouldn't want to teach virtual all the time. I've got colleagues that have small children, and they're not teaching in person because they don't want to take a risk of bringing home to their small children. And their small children are going to school virtually as well. If you watched the SMU Memphis game, you saw that the police cleared the student section in the first half because they weren't abiding by the COVID restrictions as the distancing and masks. So, I guess my viewpoint is if people are going to be socially responsible, and they sure weren't the first week the schools opened up and they had rush week and all the parties that went on and everything, all the craziness. Everybody realizes that, it's college, you're young, you're going to have fun, but this is deadly stuff. This is not, getting a cold. This is deadly. Nobody knows what the long-term ramifications of this are going to be. My son came down with COVID this week. He works on a TV show, NCIS New Orleans, and he's in charge of the sets and all the stages. And he came down with COVID. And he's 47 and he's fit as a fiddle. He works out every day. He's built like a Greek god, and it knocked him on his ass. So I just think that, we don't know. I mean, you can do everything there is to do, and he did, to protect yourself. But if somebody else doesn't protect themselves, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
You're susceptible to it's going to hit you. So it's just a crazy situation. I would love students to be able to have as much of the college experience as they can. And, my alma mater, Oklahoma State's had 3 home games, and they've had students, and they've been socially distanced, and it's looked good, and I haven't heard any repercussions there. I think the saddest thing I saw on television so far this year was, I forget who Ole Miss played in their opener. I want to say it was, I can't even think who it was, but it was at Ole Miss, and they showed the Grove where everybody tailgates. And I've been to the Grove, and it's an amazing, amazing place. And they showed the Grove totally empty. And that was, I just felt the pain. So I just think we have to be more considerate of other people and understand that this is just, 2020 is just like a curse. And the sooner it's over, hopefully the better it is, but it's a curse.
Yeah.
The only thing good for me is since I retired, I'm playing golf 3 days a week, and I have so many 80s now. And I was in the high 90s. Now I'm in the mid to high 80s. So I'm happy about that, but otherwise I'm not too happy.
More practice, able to develop better consistency.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, I know I'm good. Hey, Vin, I know I'm good on one golf course.
What's that one?
The one I live by. So
Okay.
I know I'm good on that course.
All right. Well, I'm disappointed because I go to Stillwater every even year. So I've been in 14, 16, and 18. And this is 2020. It was my year to go. And it was Halloween weekend was going to be homecoming. So I always go to their homecoming. And obviously that's not going to happen. So we'll switch it to hopefully to the odd year of 2021. But who knows what the number of capacity will be, and if they could do homecoming the way they do it. And
Can you imagine what homecoming would have been with COVID? It would have been a disaster.
Oh, massive spread. Massive. There's no way. I would have just walking down there and had a T-shirt that said, please give me COVID so I can get this over with.
Yeah.
Because, between the fraternities and the sororities and the people that come into Stillwater from throughout Oklahoma, especially for the night
Friday
before
night.
the game.
Yeah, Friday night,
Friday night.
100,000 plus on Friday night.
Yeah. 100,000 people walking the street shoulder to shoulder, food trucks, drinking, then go to homecoming and hoops, and then all the bars on the street and restaurants. It's just, it's not the
That's
same.
crazy stuff, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Questions? Matt. Oh, we got a lot. We'll go Matt, then Demetrius, then Derek. Go, because you got one already, Derek, but keep it. Matt, go ahead. Sure. Okay. Most influential experience throughout your career that inspires you to think of new and exciting and different projects when you were, working, or even now when you retire, working with, in contact with all your former students and the leagues and many executives that you know and have a relationship with?
The first year I worked for David Stern, so it had been 2000, when I did my sabbatical, which would be like an internship. And I worked for Commissioner Stern for a year. And I had a chance to do a lot of amazing things and stretch myself and bring him ideas and have him react to ideas. I wrote about it in SBJ. I mean, it was an incredible life changer, game changer, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. But that would absolutely be it. And then I worked for him for a year. And then I went back to UMass, and I went back to the NBA as he hired me as vice president of team marketing. And I spent 3 more years full-time and 3 more years part-time after that. But that would absolutely be the most challenging and the most rewarding, other than, finding jobs for my students, which is just as rewarding as selling a sponsorship to me.
Yeah. Okay. Demetrius, what we got?
How long do you think this is going to go on for COVID? Do you think it's going to be a thing like 3 years in sports with no fans?
Specifically in the sports industry with COVID, you touched upon it before, what's going on in all the leagues, and Derek asked a question about college football and college basketball. How long do you see this going on in the world of sports specifically with COVID? Is it, this year and, magically we turn back the clock and you're at full stadiums in next summer, or are we looking at 21, 22 down the road?
I think realistically, we're looking at 21, 22, the fall of 21. I think that's realistic. There should be a vaccine. It should have been distributed by then, and we should know if it worked by then. That's another thing. I mean, it's one thing to have a vaccine, but it's got to be an effective vaccine that works for at least 60 to 70% of the people.
Right. Do you then still see the changes? Like you talked about Nick brought up the question about the gambling and the premium flexibility you referenced before. You see those changes still being possible because people not feeling safe still, even if they.
No, I think that if anything that's successful is going to stay. I think the biggest change is I don't see us going back in the office, any of us, for 5 days a week. I see 3 days a week, maybe 2 days a week. And the reason we're going to go back is we can have meetings virtually. We can do a lot of the work from home. We miss being with people. We miss, I was just talking to somebody the other day. I said, what do you miss the most? And she said, I miss just that informality of walking up to somebody and stopping by their desk and spontaneously deciding to go to lunch one day. All that's not there. And people really miss that. But I don't see going back in the office 5 days a week. We've just proven, and Vin, you've known for years that I wanted to destroy every phone room at every team and just give everybody a cell phone.
Yeah.
And it's happened now. And exactly what happened, I said, why do we sit in a room and call people with a landline and talk to 8 people a day and think that's a good day's work? When if we had a cell phone, and instead of me calling you up and saying, hey, have you ever been to one of our games? Well, this is what it's like. And I start talking to you. So never been to one of our games. Let me send you a video clip. And just you use the phone for all the things the phone can do. The phone is more than a device to talk on and listen to. And we just have never grasped that until now. So I think that we have to look at everything we're capable of and just change the way we did it. And one of the reasons we always did it that way was because we always did it that way. And everybody that was trained to be a sales manager was trained the same way. And they all had the same experiences, and they all had the same way of running a team. And now this has challenged all that.
Right.
So I think it's been a really positive thing, but we're not going to go back in the office 5 days a week.
What do you think about the job market? Like I referenced in the email I sent you earlier this morning about the number of students in here. A lot
Yeah.
will be graduating in May. Anybody graduating in December? Matt's great. Bobby, December. Jason, in December. So you have a couple graduates in December, a couple graduates, the rest graduating May. Like I said, there's one sophomore in the class. So you talked about the importance of internships, but how competitive they will be even more now. What's your thoughts on that, given that you also take great pride and great enthusiasm in when you help to place a student in your program in the past, programs, I should say?
I just think this is going to separate how bad people want it. You know, what are you willing to do? How are you willing to put yourself out there? Are you comfortable really selling yourself? You know, when I went to work for David Stern, that was a letter that I sent to the NBA office, cold letter. Okay.
You still have that letter?
I still have the letter.
Wow.
And I said, I've got a sabbatical coming up. I'd like to work for you and help you at the NBA. And I mentioned a couple of things I thought I could do. And I told him in the letter that if I don't hear from him by, I think it was July 15th, because I knew he had the NBA playoffs. I sent the letter in May. So I knew he had the NBA playoffs in June and then the draft at the end of the month. So I said, if I don't hear from you by July 15th, I'll call you. And I think he called my house July 13th or something like that. And I went to New York and interviewed. But that was me writing a letter and not being afraid to hear no. I didn't expect him to even respond. I thought I'd end up calling him. Mm-hmm. And I really was, while I was hopeful that something positive would happen to me. I don't think I could say I was optimistic. But at the same time, you know, if you don't do it, you don't take the chance, you don't roll the dice, you never know.
Yeah. That's interesting you say, because that's like the conversation I had. People ask me all the time, like, how'd I intern for the New York Yankees? And I literally just had a conversation with someone at the NBA draft. The guy was sitting in front of me and he was working for Brian Cashman from UNC as an intern over the summer in analytics. And I said, you know, you have any opportunities during the postseason? He was like, yeah, well, let me talk to Cashman tomorrow. And he wrote me back the next day. He's like, yeah, we hire student interns from around the area to work media relations and work the press boxes. At the time in the old Yankee Stadium, I was like, okay. He's like, you don't mind? I'm like, yeah, tell me what time to be there.
Yeah, for sure.
2 to midnight. I was like, okay, you got it. But yeah, if I didn't ask that guy in front of me, I never would have had an opportunity like that for sure.
And that's what I say to people. I mean, you got to propose it. You got to ask. You know, nobody's going to be advertising for internships right now.
They don't have to.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be there in anything else. So we're going to see.
Yeah. Derek, what do you got? Sure. Great question. So the question is about TV viewership. We saw TV viewership declining pre-COVID, and now we are still in COVID. We won't say post-COVID, but now you're starting to hear a lot of the television deals are starting to come up, or to not negotiation, but are going to be expiring. Where do you see TV revenue dollars? Is staying the same, increasing, decreasing by the networks? What are your thoughts?
They won't decrease because there's just too much dependence on it right now. You know, and the reason the ratings are going down isn't because people aren't interested. It's just because there's so much on TV. I mean, we went from having nothing to now, what do we have, 8 baseball games the other day? 8.
Yeah.
Good, 8 baseball games, plus the NBA, plus the NHL. Okay.
And you'll have it again. It's going to overlap again.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, you know, it's how compelling is your sport? How compelling is your story? So it's not going to go down. It could be flat.
Yeah.
But you look also for other alternatives. You look for, you know, is now the time that Amazon or YouTube or somebody comes in and becomes an active bidder on a Thursday night football package?
Yeah.
Could happen.
I've always thought that one of the 5 would come in and make a substantial deal. Either Amazon, YouTube, Facebook, although some are owned by the same, Google or someone, they would take one of the leagues and just put a whole platform out there. Go ahead, Derek. Amazon with the Premier League he's talking about. Go ahead. 10 of the best games from last season. He said he read something about Amazon and the Premier League. 10 games around Boxing Day in England from the Premier League, only on Amazon, exclusively. This was.
Yeah, I can see that. Here's the deal. You know, soccer in the United States, and I'm going to say soccer, I'm not going to say football. Soccer in the United States is nowhere near where it's going to be. Nowhere near. Okay? It'll eventually pass baseball. It'll go NFL. It'll go NFL, NBA, soccer within the next 10 or 15 years. Now, the holdup is we're not good. That's the problem. That's the problem. Americans measure their success internationally. That's why we like the dream team to go kick everybody's ass.
Right.
That's why
we can't even qualify for the World Cup.
No, we don't have the best American athletes playing soccer, and then the best American soccer players don't play in America. And until that happens, it's never going to be where it could be. But once we start getting our best athletes playing soccer, and we increase the level of play at MLS and globally, and we can be competitive in the World Cup, you're going to see an unbelievable emphasis on soccer in the U.S. It's going to be incredible.
All right, what do you got?
We've been waiting.
Too long.
Yeah.
Great question. Dr. Sutton, Tyreek is referencing the Olympics. So the Olympics obviously canceled this year, moved to this coming summer of 2021 in Japan.
Right.
Japan, correct?
Yep.
Tokyo. Do you see
Tokyo.
do you see it with fans? Do you see it happening? What's your thoughts on the Olympics?
I see with fans, but not necessarily a big basis of international fans traveling. I don't see that yet. There'll be some, but I don't think, in Japan, the countries over there that'll be involved in the hosting are going to be very, very meticulous. And it might mean that if America keeps doing the half-assed job we're doing on COVID, we're not going to be able to go anywhere. I can't even go to Maine right now.
That's true.
It's ridiculous.
They're not. Yeah. George?
I was going to give a little rebuttal about the soccer thing.
Oh, he wants a rebuttal about soccer. Why?
Yeah.
How we have a lot of American stars actually playing overseas and for key teams. Barcelona just signed Sergio.
Yeah.
He just played the first 15 minutes. Any American has played at Barca. We got Christian Pulisic.
Yeah. They're playing in Europe.
I think what he's saying is he wants them here, right?
They play here. Playing over there doesn't do it. It has to play here. It has to be American soccer has to be on the same, has to be competitive with the EPL. And until that happens, it's not going to be where it is.
Well, that's going to obviously take a really long time.
Well, he said 10 to 15 years. That's his time frame.
What I'm trying to say is that before we didn't really have that many star players also representing us Americans overseas,
right,
and playing at the highest level that they're playing right now.
Yeah.
It's going to help change the whole dynamic, especially considering it's possible for an American to play at a top team, which would basically push more people who want to play soccer because they see it's a possibility. If you said 10 years ago that you'd see Pulisic grab number 10 at Chelsea, or an American play for Barcelona, or Gio Reyna grabbing a hat trick of assists this past weekend, these are things that 10 years ago people would have laughed at because Americans in soccer is not really something that people connect with yet.
Right. I think what he's saying, though, what Dr. Sutton is saying is he's talking about that in 10 years you'll see guys like the players you're referencing playing not in Europe, but playing for the top MLS teams here, and therefore
Against Europe.
against Europe.
Yeah.
Right.
Or there'll be a new global league that the EPL will be more global, and the U.S. will have a couple franchises in it.
Right.
But it's just, it was the same when we used to make fun of European basketball players trying to come to the United States to play basketball, and guess what?
That happened.
Same thing. We're just not as good. The fact that America dominated the Olympics and the dream team went to the Olympics, that helped grow basketball around the world. We need the same thing to happen to soccer for the U.S. to grow soccer in the U.S. And that means, you're going to have to pay players NFL money in the MLS to get them to play here. If they go to Europe and make a lot of money. So we have a lot of restructuring to do. I'm just thinking that this could happen. I mean, soccer is that popular and there's that much interest in it. More people are playing it and less people are playing baseball. It's just naturally going to happen. But we got to get good. I mean, if you look right now, men's tennis, who's the best American tennis player? The answer is nobody cares because they're not good enough to compete. We have great women's players, but we don't have great men's players.
True. No Andre Agassi or Pete Sampras. That's what I remember.
And when those guys were playing, and before that, McEnroe and Connors,
right?
You couldn't get on an outdoor tennis court. You had to make reservations to play tennis because everybody was taking up the game because we were good and we were watching these guys and we wanted to emulate them. And when Tiger started playing golf, same thing. We need American soccer players for that to happen here too.
True. That's why you got a guy in golf. You have guys like Bryson and Matt Wolf and Dustin Johnson that make you watch it. I have my own opinion about golf. I don't think guys are competitive enough. They're not like they're all very clubbish together. Like they all play at the same country club and leave in the same development. And there's no competition against each other. Like that's why everyone likes the Ryder Cup because it's the United States versus Europe. And that's why that's one of the most fun events. But then the other events kind of like, hey, if I finish in it's like where Happy Gilmore finishes 50th and gets the $100,000 check and he's okay with throwing the checks in the back. That's not okay to me. You want to be you want to be the best.
That's right. We make fun of kids getting a trophy for 7th place. Golf, you get money for 32nd place.
Right.
Take it away. Take it away.
Exactly. Something's got to change. Derek.
Yeah.
We got.
My question was related to soccer. So the top clubs in soccer in Europe want to forge their own type of NBA, for example, so that they can control the revenue, keep the quality of soccer where it is. Does that would not benefit? Like, would not change? Like, basically, what I'm saying is, if that were to happen, does it change the league that would focus American?
So if the top clubs in Europe, you're saying, in soccer-related question, if the top soccer clubs in Europe form their own league and control the revenue, help the United States, not the United States, to add on franchise to this league that the top clubs in Europe would create together. Do you think that would be beneficial to the United States or not have no impact at all to United States soccer?
No, I think it'd be beneficial. And all that money that the United States wants to spend on soccer it'd be spent wisely because the competition will be there. Now, those American teams can't finish last every year.
Fair point.
But they're not going to be all American teams anyhow. They're going to be teams based in America with a lot of American players, still with international players. That's never going to change.
Right. Bobby, you had a question?
I just don't really see how would the MLS compete with European teams when the MLS has a salary cap and then the teams in Europe are owned by literal oil bugs. The MLS is kind of
How do you see the MLS competing with its salary cap and things like that in comparison to competing with the European soccer leagues? He doesn't see.
It's going to change.
Got to change.
I mean, you got to pay NFL. You got to pay NFL money.
NFL money.
I mean, kids aspire to play, and kids choose games now based upon where the opportunities are, and they don't see the opportunities in soccer, so they're all channeled into basketball and football where they are. And baseball opportunities. Baseball, most of our baseball players are coming from Latin America.
Well, Bobby and Derek are saying about the ownership of certain European clubs by. Yeah, and MLS owns part of every club. So they're saying the ownership piece is a big distinction difference, right? Salary cap, and then the ownership of the European clubs is distinctly different from the United States.
But look how long those clubs have been around. Look how long MLS has been around. I mean, you got to evolve and grow. And MLS has been very successful the last 4 or 5 years, but not 10 years ago, not 15 years ago, not 20 years ago. This is a model that works now. The model will have to evolve.
So evaluation and reshaping of the MLS model.
Yeah, it's got to evolve. It's got to evolve. It's like baseball. Baseball needed to evolve and hasn't.
Is that why the shrinking? And I know you've had a great relationship with minor league baseball and living down in Florida and working with USF, because I know Zach did an internship. Zach Corman did an internship in minor league baseball. Is that why the change in the minor league baseball system?
Yeah, one of them. I mean, it was an archaic system. Now you're going to have about 120 teams instead of 160. But what you're going to see is you're going to see a growth of independent teams, because those towns that invested money in stadiums still want to have that entertainment. And independent league team, nobody, if you get a minor league game, you're not going to root for anybody. You're going to go have a good time. And so the independent league teams will work just as well.
All right. Well, we're at the time, but I want to say thank you first and foremost. Second is, do you have any closing remarks to make to the class in spite of these times?
Yeah, I do.
The curse of 2020, as you said it before. But go ahead.
Hey, wake up to esports. There's money, and it's going to keep blowing up. Make sure, I mean, if you haven't thought about it, a career in esports, selling partnerships and being involved in event management and creating games and events for esports things is just unbelievable. My son works for Riot, which is League of Legends. It's been unbelievable what's happened with that. And Valorant now. I mean, it's going to be a college athletic sport. It's going to be an NCAA competition. There's going to be a national champion. There's going to be conference champions. That's all going to happen. Make sure you get on the ground floor. If you're interested in it, make sure you can play the game and understand the business.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, guys. Take care.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so
Take
much.
care, Vinny.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.